How's it going, everybody? This is the Nitty Gritty. My name is Chad. With me is Leonard. This is a show about wrestling. And first things first, Happy New Year, Leonard.
Happy New Year to you. And I would like to mention that I'm wearing Chad's Christmas present to me, which is an I Love Beaver t-shirt for all the Beaver Cleavage fans out there like us.
And, I would love to know how many copies of that shirt he has sold. But that's neither here nor there.
Chad and I are actually, we're going to a wrestling convention on March 12th. I think this is the first mention of that, and I'm seriously thinking about wearing this shirt.
There you go.
It's probably one of the only places on earth I could probably wear this shirt.
That's true. That is very true. Well, Leonard, any New Year's resolutions you care to speak of?
I'm not a big fan of New Year's resolutions. The only thing I will say is I resolved not to spill the tea, literally or figuratively. Another thing I mentioned is that I'm coming to you from a new device tonight.
There you go.
My family, my sister and her family and my mom got me a new Chromebook. And I just got it tonight as of this recording. And so this is one of the first things I'm doing on it.
All right. Well, no wrestling resolutions?
Well, we talked about me starting to watch AEW at least, and I haven't started that yet. But
this would be a good week to start it.
Yes,
we're coming to you from a Tuesday, and as far as tomorrow goes, Wednesday, they're switching over to TBS, and the first main event match is a Bryan Danielson versus Hangman Page 2. So.
Yeah, and I do have plans on watching that. Side note, my wife is starting an art class, so I'll be alone on Wednesday evenings, which would be a great time for me to be able to watch the TBS show.
She's helping us out. She's helping us out whether she knows it or not.
Yes, so I do have plans to watch that, and maybe we'll start adding that to the show, a few minutes of AEW talk as I get into it.
Right. Well, I would love to watch. I'm always looking to watch more stuff that I don't get a chance to watch, like some of the stuff from Japan, or even though ROH is obviously winding down, I would love to watch more of that classic stuff if I can ever get my hands on it. But anyway, this week we are going to be coming at you with a topic that only we would think of. Am I right, Leonard?
Yes.
It's true. So we are coming at you with a ranking list that Leonard has dubbed the Rose Garden. And that is because we are going to be ranking every person that incorporates the name Rose or a variation thereof. We are going to be ranking them from 10 to 1. Right, Leonard?
Yes, and I should say it's not everyone. There were several indie wrestlers that I don't think anyone is probably much aware of that incorporated a Rose name. So they're not part of the list. I kind of went with the 10 that I kind of know who they are. Just so the folks know who we're dealing with here, our list, our pool, in vague alphabetical order is going to be Adam Rose, Angel Rose, Buddy Rose, Mandy Rose, Nyla Rose, Randy Rose, Rosie, Thunder Rosa, Rosa Mendez, and Rosemary. And how I came upon this was, as I've mentioned before, I do fantasy wrestling drafts. And the latest one we've done is a swap draft, which we've not done before. So basically, you draft 16 people, and then your rosters get randomly switched with someone else. So you're building off of the 16 people they drafted. You draft 16 more. It got swapped one more time, and then you had an extra 8 slots to kind of clean things up, complete tag teams, stuff like that. So the roster I wound up with had 4 women on it. And I was like, well, if I'm going to have a women's division, I need a couple more. One guy only had 2 women. So I made him a trade. It was a Japanese guy I wasn't very much aware of, and Butch Reed, because he had Ron Simmons, for Mandy Rose, and I forget the other lady. But after that, I came to the realization that I had Buddy Rose on my roster. So I was like, oh, that makes sense. I need one more Rose person. And I thought of Adam Rose off the top of my head. And I have a stable called the Rose Garden. But when I was looking up, people named Rose, there was more than I would have thought. And so that's where this ranking idea came from.
All right. Well, Leonard, since you came up with this idea, you can go first with your number 10 pick.
Sure. And I would guess that our number 10 might be the same, and then it's probably going to get different from there.
I made a mistake, so I'm pretty sure it won't be.
Okay. I went with Angel Rose, just because she's the one I'm least familiar with. She's a Cuban-American professional wrestler currently working for AEW. So since she's currently on a national program, I thought to throw her in there. She primarily works under the name of, I don't know if I'm pronouncing this correctly, it's either Diamant or possibly Diamante. And also she's worked under the name Adrenaline, but she has also worked under the name of Angel Rose. Her real name is Priscilla Zuniga. And so just because I'm not too familiar with her, she has wrestled in Impact and with AEW, seems to be on a very underneath part of the card. I couldn't really rank her higher than 10 just because I'm not that familiar with her. And also, and we didn't say this, only consider their Rose work. The fact that she hasn't really wrestled under Angel Rose a whole lot. Her primary, like national television exposure has seemingly been under other names.
Right. Well, that is not my number 10 pick.
Oh, okay.
So my number 10 pick is actually because I made a mistake of who this person actually is, but I'm not changing it because that wouldn't be very much fun, would it? Okay. My number 10 pick is Rosemary because I thought when I saw the name, I was like, oh, I know who that is. That's the annoying person that managed David Flair in WCW. But
that's Daphne.
That's Daphne, who sadly did pass away
in
September of 2021. So definitely rest in peace. But I found that character to be extremely irritating and annoying. So that's why I put this person, Rosemary, at 10. But to Leonard's point about Angel Rose, I do not know much about Rosemary's work in TNA. I didn't watch TNA, every week by any stretch of the imagination. I will say by looking at her gimmick, it feels like there's this type of gimmick in like one of every era. Right now in AEW, there's a character called Abaddon, who is similar, just kind of with, the goth and the horror type look, trying to be as scary as possible. They are what they are. Some of them are okay to me, others just fall flat. I do not know much about Rosemary's work. And what I have read and heard of is that she's quite capable in the ring. She was in TNA for a very long time. She was in Shimmer before that. She was in a group called Decay, I believe.
Yes. With Abyss and Crazy Steve.
Right. Which is, great name. So she was the Impact Wrestling Knockouts champion one time, and she was the Impact Knockouts Tag Team champion with Havoc one time as well. But she's held other titles throughout her career. So she's clearly quite a capable talent. But unfortunately for her, she ranks 10 on my list.
Well, I have her much higher on my list. I don't know if you want to say where I placed her right now.
That's all right. We'll get there.
Or we'll get to her. But I'm actually more familiar with her. I was watching TNA at the time that she first came in, was working with Decay, had some of her bigger runs, and I actually think she's a great talent in the ring and outside too. She works the character very well. Again, it's one of those kind of crazy goth type characters.
Right.
And I know some people might freak out if I compare her to The Undertaker, but there are very similar types of character, dealing with the mystical, dealing with demonic storylines.
Right.
She's 38 years old, which I was surprised. I thought she was younger than that. So she's probably not got a lot left in her career, just age-wise, around 40s, where a lot of people retire, men or women. So I think pretty much where she's at now is kind of where she's going to be. But I always liked her work in Impact, and I definitely think that at the end of her career, when you go back and look, people are going to be like, oh, she was a real highlight of the period of Impact in the Knockouts division for when she was there. So I'll just give the number for her when we get there. But yes, I have her much higher on my list than 10.
All right, Leonard, what's your number 9?
My number 9 is one that you may disagree with, is Nyla Rose. Nyla Rose recently, when we I forget what we were actually talking about, but I got on Nyla Rose and how I didn't really care for what I saw of her when I was originally watching AEW when it first came about. I thought that she was someone who didn't really know, how to wrestle for her size, and especially work with much smaller wrestlers in the ring. She kind of reminded me of Nia Jax, and just being kind of big and awkward and not knowing really how to work at that size. I know you've been watching more of AEW, so I'll throw it to you while I look up some stuff more on Nyla. Has she improved from day one AEW to now?
Well, I guess it's all what you consider to be improving. I certainly see where you're saying, like, being a little rough around the edges. There's certain opponents that she works well with, and others that maybe not. She is kind of that Nia Jax, Awesome Kong type of talent, and I don't mind her. I do think that when you have somebody like that, it's tough to find chemistry sometimes. As it was with Nia Jax, and as it was with Awesome Kong, because they're so imposing and strong, they're in a class of their own. So it sometimes can be tough to find a talent that gels well with people like that. There is somebody else on this list that I do think gelled with Nyla Rose, but I had her a little bit higher. So we'll get there.
Sure. And just to mention on Nyla, she was, of course, a former AEW Women's World Champion one time. She won the Women's Casino Battle Royal in 2019. She won a Dynamite Award for Best Twitter Follow. She's won some other awards. She was ranked 16 in the top 100 female wrestlers by the PWI in 2020. And she's the first openly transgender wrestler to work for a major U.S. company. And I think you really have to, applaud her for that, because I can imagine, because you see the type of online, stuff, I'll just say stuff, that just regular female and male wrestlers get. So the fact that she's very open about being transgender and is proud of that and doesn't run from that, and I'm sure gets a lot of flack for that by a lot of people, I think she should be admired for. I think she is a strong role model in that way.
No,
for everything I've seen and how she's presented herself and presented that.
No, yeah, I agree. And I mean, there was some recent controversy with people just who act inappropriately, bring inappropriate
signs.
Yes,
bringing an odd sign. I had read that. Even I'm not watching the programs, I kind of keep up on the news, and I had read that being a controversy recently.
Right. Well, my number 9 is Adam Rose. So I put him here because I didn't like the gimmick. I didn't think he was that special in the ring. And to me, he's under that category of talent called a channel changer. When he was on and when his rosebuds came down with him, it was annoying. And I just wanted to change the channel away from it. And, you had somebody like No Way Jose in NXT, and eventually he did kind of flirt with the main roster for like a cup of coffee. But again, you have like this guy whose character is just that he likes to party, and he has people come down and party with him. It didn't make any sense to me. By the way, his name is not Adam Rose. It's Raymond LePan, and he was in FCW. He was in NXT. And he made his debut after WrestleMania 30 is when some of the vignettes for Adam Rose would start to appear. And, he's not a bad talent in the ring. I just found his gimmick to be irritating. And that's why he's here. So,
well, I've got Adam Rose higher, which we'll mention that number when we get there. And here's the thing with him, and why I think I have him higher, is that, again, like I mentioned before, the difference between the Rose gimmick and other stuff. He had wrestled before becoming Adam Rose when hitting the main WWE roster as Leo Kruger, and went back to
Right.
that on the indie circuit when he left WWE. And again, I haven't seen a lot of Kruger, but I have seen some, and I have heard that his work was better as Leo Kruger, and that has, I think, a lot to do with the gimmick. Rose is a guy that, from everything I've heard, was better in the developmental and indies, but he seemed to be one of the many guys who gets to the main roster. He's saddled with a silly gimmick. He doesn't commit to it. I don't think he was you can look. I don't think he was a fan of it when he was doing it,
Right.
because he doesn't like it, and then he flames out. I remember the Rosebuds. I remember the party gimmick. I remember him feuding with his rabbit. But I don't remember any memorable, other feuds or matches or storylines or anything with him. And
Right.
even when you say, "Oh, well, he's got this bad gimmick, but he can show what he can do in the ring," well, not if you got 5-minute Raw matches, and most of it is comic stuff with the Rosebuds,
Right.
So I think this is a guy that probably, if you just look at the Adam Rose period, probably deserves to be low on the list. If you look at everything else that he's done, he probably deserves to be a little higher on the list.
Right. Well said. So, Leonard, we are on to number 8, I believe.
My number 8 for me is going to be Rosa Mendez. She's from Canada, but of Czech and Puerto Rican descent. Costa Rican descent. My apologies. Costa Rican descent. She's 42 and retired now from professional wrestling. She was on Total Divas and also was a wrestler and a valet in the WWE for several years. But looks like she was part of the Diva Search in 2006. She played Beth Phoenix's intern. She's probably, I think her best era was when she was managing Primo and Epico,
Right.
which was from 2011 to 2013. I thought she was a really good valet because she was active. She just wasn't pretty and stood there. She would yell, she would scream, she would pound the mat, she would help them out. She was active. It wasn't just Primo, Epico, and this girl that comes out with them. It was Primo, Epico, and Rosa. They felt like more of a trio. And I think that was her best showing there. After that, she did wrestle some. She was around the era of like Kelly, Beth Phoenix, Michelle McCool, Layla L, things like that. And so she, I think, fits that. Like she's not any worse or any better than really any of those ladies. Beth Phoenix, of course, would be on the upper echelon of that, but she fit the time period that she was there. Looking at some of her accomplishments, she was in Florida Championship Wrestling and was queen of FCW. She also worked in Ohio Valley Wrestling and was their women's champion. In 2008, she ranked 43 of the top 50 female wrestlers that PWI put out. She won a Slammy Award for Best Use of Exercise Equipment in 2010. Don't really remember that angle. And then in 2013, the Wrestling Observer newsletter gave her Worst Worked Match of the Year, which appears to have been a 8-man tag. I think I remember this tag match. I think I remember it was something like every woman they had like against each other, and they all got like 2 seconds in the ring. It was like a 5-minute match with like 12 women.
Right.
Yes, but so you can't blame that on Rosa. It was just to let you know her era. So this was Rosa Mendez teaming with AJ Lee, Oksana, Alicia Fox, Caitlin, and Summer Rae, and Tamina Snuka versus Brie Bella, Cameron, Eva Marie, JoJo, Naomi, Natalia, and Nikki Bella.
That sounds awful.
Yeah, so that was her era. So I think I can't really rank Rosa higher as a wrestler, but I think she was an effective valet, and she was certainly an attractive woman, and she I think the outfits they put her in worked for the character, worked for the gimmick, and I did enjoy her working with Primo and Epico.
Yeah, I mean, I have her just a tad higher, but I mean, I agree with what you said. This wasn't an era I was watching a lot of, and to be truthful, this is like my least favorite diva era if I would have to rank them. Mm-hmm. But I did think she was a fine valet for what she was. As you said, she's an attractive lady, and she seemed to commit to her role just fine. And then, she was in the business for a little bit, and then she just wasn't. So, hats off to her. But my number 8 pick is Angel Rose, Diamante, however you say her name. I'm familiar with her work in AEW. She's a good talent, up and coming. They have a lot of female talent that are, progressing and trying to get better. And, I kind of alleviated my bottom 2 spots for people that stood out to me as annoying. Sorry, Rosemary. But this part of the list are the people that I thought were just fine, but didn't really make a big impression.
Okay.
You could put my list into 3 phases, really. So that's where Angel Rose falls in. I think she, can improve, and I hope to see her improve. There's a lot of diversity in AEW, much to Swole's chagrin. But there is a lot of diversity in AEW, and she's part of it. So that's my number 8.
Okay.
Number 7?
So my number 7 for me is Randy Rose. We talked about him a little bit when we did our ranking of tag teams with the Express name in them, because Randy Rose was not only part of the original Midnight Express, was also part of the original Midnight Express. So he started out with Dennis Condrey and Norvell Austin, and then Bobby Eaton came in.
Was he better in the original Midnight Express or the original Midnight Express?
Well, see, here's the difference: is because the period of the first incarnation of the Midnight Express, there's not, I don't think, a lot out there, or at least a lot that I have seen. So I'm most familiar with him when he had his run in WCW in the early 90s, teaming again with Dennis Condrey as the original Midnight Express.
So you're a fan of him in the original Midnight Express?
Yes, the original Midnight Express, as opposed to the original Midnight Express.
Right.
Because I haven't seen a lot of that. But Randy, real name is Randall Alice. He's 65, in Nashville, Tennessee. He's retired, but I know he has occasionally worked some conventions and has done some stuff when Bobby Eaton was still alive, and with Conjuring Cornette and things like that, like a whole Midnight Express conglomerate type of thing. Real journeyman wrestler. He was AWA, CWA, Central States, Deep South. He went into the Pro Wrestling Hall of Fame in 2019, along with Condrey and Eaton, part of the Midnight Express. And to me, Randy Rose is just like the average kind of 1980s wrestler. Whenever you would watch, especially a Southern promotion like NWA, Jim Crockett Promotions, etc., you would see guys like Randy Rose working underneath. Didn't have a great look, didn't have a great physique, but an okay hand in the ring. So, I couldn't rank him a lot higher than 7. I'm sure some old school fans might think more of him than that. But again, I know him mostly from the original Midnight Express era when he was in WCW. And from that, too, he always felt like a third wheel to me, even in that. Like, it was Condrey and Heyman, a.k.a. Paulie Dangerously, and they would be like, and Randy Rose is over here. So he definitely didn't do a lot in promos. I don't remember a lot about him, but a solid enough hand of that era.
Right. No, I agree. I have him a little bit higher, but everything you said, I agree with.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So my number 7 is Rosa Mendez, which Leonard already discussed. Again, this wasn't an era I was watching every week, but I do know who she is and was aware of her work enough that I can say that she's a very safe, middle-of-the-road pick for my list. The Czech and Costa Rican combination is very interesting to me. When you said that, I kept thinking about that. What an interesting combination, but a very attractive lady. Mm-hmm. So, the fact that she got out of the business, I'm sure she's happier, because like I said, that was a weird era for divas. It was like that transition era where they were trying to be more athletic, but like the company wanted them to be a certain thing, and they were still called divas, and the butterfly belt, and yeah. So moving on. Number 6, Leonard.
Number 6, I have Rosie, also known as Matt, and I never know how to say the last name, Anoa'i, perhaps, Anoa'i. apostrophe I. Again, one of the famous Samoan wrestling families. Umaga was his cousin. Roman Reigns is his brother. Rosie unfortunately died in 2017 at the age of 47. He's probably best remembered for two different gimmicks that he had in WWE. He was part of 3 Minute Warning, which was a tag team used by Eric Bischoff, that he would, when things were boring, things were stale, things he didn't like, he would say, "You've received your 3 minute warning," and they would come out and beat up who was ever in the ring. And then after that, he became Rosie, the superhero in training, working with Hurricane Helms. So he wore kind of a costume and a mask, and it was very much a joke character, comedy thing. And when Nikki Cross became Nikki Ash, was it a superhero in training, or I forget what they call it. But that's what I thought of when I first saw that. I was like, hey, that's just Rosie. She's doing the Rosie gimmick.
They were tag team champions, right? He and the Hurricane?
Yes, they were, I believe, one time. I'm getting that down here. Yeah, he and the Hurricane was one-time tag team champions. He held belts in other promotions. Again, floated around a lot. He was able to work a lot because of his family connections and to work with different members of his family in different promotions. I always liked Rosie in both gimmicks. I thought that 3 Minute Warning, to the fact that he went from a menacing gimmick like 3 Minute Warning to a silly gimmick like Rosie and the Hurricane, and both were fun, and I liked both, I think spoke to him as a talent, and he certainly is someone we lost too soon.
No, absolutely, I agree. I also have him a little bit higher. We'll get there. And my next pick, number 6, is Nyla Rose. So I think Nyla Rose was a very important part to the early growth of AEW and establishing the women's division as one that has some stability and a foundation. And I think that she can be good in the ring. I think that she's more of the Brock Lesnar type, in that nowadays, anyway, like the matches, if they're kept fairly short, they're a little bit better. When they try to have her go a little bit longer, that's when I think things can become a little awkward at times. But I enjoy her, pretty well in the ring. I think that if she's not used too much, not overused, I think it's better for her character. But yeah, again, I think she's been a really crucial part of how that women's division is growing. The only thing is, I think that as the division gets larger and as people start to jump ship or join from other promotions, I think that somebody like Nyla Rose will get maybe not lost in the shuffle, but will certainly get pushed down the card. But then again, that's why AEW is creating a new belt, the TBS championship belt. So now effectively there will be, a lot for some of these women to do. So you know what, maybe she'll still be featured prominently. So yeah.
But there's only so much time for them to do that in, even though I know they have, was it 2 web shows now?
Yeah, I know they have AEW Dark. And there's Rampage, which is on Fridays.
Okay.
And
again, I know they have a lot of programming now. So, but that's good with the amount of talent they have. Anyway, I already talked about Nyla Rose because I had her a lot lower on my list. And yeah, I'm interested in, as I get back into watching AEW, maybe seeing how she's grown and developed in that time.
Number 5.
So number 5 for me is Adam Rose, who we've already talked about, because you had him a lot lower.
Number 5.
Yeah, I've got him at the halfway point. Because again, if you factor in the Leo Kruger stuff, I think he deserves to be higher on the list.
All right. Well, I'll take it. My number 5, again, we can kind of speed through some of these, is Randy Rose. And everything Leonard said, I agree with. He wasn't known for his promos, but he was a good journeyman type hand in the ring. Very much territory guy, was all over the place. Obviously, his biggest claim to fame was the Midnight Express feud. And yeah, I mean, no complaints about him. I mean, very much an 80s look to him. Wouldn't you say, Leonard?
Yes, very much.
Got the mustache and the curly hair and like kind of like a Magnum TA type.
Right. If you were going to do an 80s creator wrestler, that it would probably look something like Mandy Rose.
That's true. Yeah.
Yeah. So my 4 is Rosemary, who we've already talked about. I think just because I'm a little more familiar with the character and I like the character more than
and
you.
the fact that she's not Daphne.
And the fact that she is not Daphne,
right,
puts her a lot higher on my list. So I had her at number 4.
All right. Well, my number 4 is Rosie, and you already talked about Rosie. I think that what you said was right on about him. He seemed to really commit to the gimmicks that he was given, and really seemed, optimistic about both of them. Like he really seemed like he enjoyed what he was doing, and that can come through the screen, even if it's a silly gimmick. We talked about Adam Rose, and maybe even we both agreed that maybe he wasn't as committed to the Adam Rose gimmick. But if you look at Shane Helms and Rosie and the gimmicks that they were given, like that could have lasted 2 weeks if they didn't care. Like they really could have, but like they committed to it. Like they were all in on it. And I enjoyed his work. We did lose him way too soon. But what a family legacy there that continues to this day, obviously. And we certainly hope that Roman Reigns gets better soon, because he has COVID right now. So
yes.
All right, Leonard.
So it appears that our top 3 are the same 3 people. Are they in the same order? We will find out. My number 3 is Mandy Rose. Currently in WWE, she's 31. Her real name is Amanda Rose Sacamano. She's from Westchester County, New York. She, at the time of this recording, a few months ago, went from being blonde to brunette. I liked her better as a blonde. I know a lot of people likes the new brunette version of her. I liked her better as a blonde. She has done fitness modeling along with professional wrestling. She is the current NXT Women's Champion at the time of this recording. And while I have been watching NXT, I've heard good things about her work with Toxic Attraction in NXT. And it seems like that's given her a career boost and some career revitalization. I also like the tag team that she had with Sonya Deville. When they first debuted, I didn't think that they needed Paige, because Paige wasn't wrestling at the time. She was just kind of there saying, I bless these 2 ladies, so you should like them. Like that was all.
Yeah, that was kind of an awkward situation, since Paige's career kind of had to end very abruptly. So they were trying to give her some work to do, But yeah, no, I agree with you. She didn't really need to be there.
Yeah. But when they were kind of on their own and just together, I like that dynamic. It seems like they are friends and enjoyed working with each other, and I like that dynamic. Mandy Rose, I think, walks a nice line, because it seems like when you talk about female wrestlers, they're either just hot and sexy or they're serious in-ring workers. And with Mandy Rose, they've tried to do both with her character. She is someone that they put out there as she's hot. This is a hot chick. But at the same time, she can handle herself in the ring. She can wrestle. And so I think Mandy's actually someone that could probably fit in different eras because of that dichotomy. And she, as I said, she's only 31. She's got a high ceiling. I think definitely she's someone who, if she takes the most of this current opportunity, being the NXT Women's Champion, is someone who's, I think, stock can only continue to go up.
All right. Well, my number 3 is Buddy Rose. And I am familiar with some Buddy Rose matches that I've come across over the years. He was a great talent in the ring. He was in a lot of different promotions. I know the match that comes to mind was Buddy Rose. I forget who his tag team partner was, against the Midnight Rockers.
Yeah, Doug Summers.
Doug Summers, yes, thank you. Which was a great match. There are other matches. I know that listening to podcasts, as he like tended to get older and maybe a little bit heavier, his work started to suffer a little bit. But Buddy Rose, I definitely think, is one of those classic wrestlers that you immediately think of if somebody were to say, hey, name a person with the name Rose. I do think most wrestling fans would probably mention him at one or two as far as like the first person that comes to their mind.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, he's, certainly not chiseled out of granite, but he was very good in the ring, could sell really well. Not as familiar with his promo work, although I'm sure it's fine. Maybe Leonard is, but yeah, number 3 for me.
Yeah, well, I'll save my thoughts on Buddy Rose because I have him a little bit higher, and you'll figure that out when I say my number 2 is Thunder Rosa. I got to know her during her work with the NWA. And I mentioned how I was watching the NWA when they first had their YouTube show, and she was part of that. And I was also aware of her as Cobra Moon in Lucha Underground. I was watching Lucha Underground as well. She is from Tijuana originally. Real name is Melissa Cervantes. She's 35. She's actually a little older than I thought she was. And again, she has wrestled in a lot of different promotions, a lot of different companies. She currently is working for AEW, All Elite Wrestling. And I know her, Serena Deeb, and Britt Baker are considered probably the 3 not only best women that they have, but 3 of the best women wrestling, today in the world, or at least in the U.S. She's also done some mixed martial arts stuff in the past. Again, different promotions. She ranked number 5 in the top 150 female wrestlers by PWI just this past year for 2021. She was a trios champ in Lucha Underground one time with Daga and Jeremiah Snake. Great name. I have to look up who Jeremiah Snake is. I'm sure he's somebody else. I just don't recognize the name. And she was the NWA World Heavyweight Champion one time, female champion, I should say. And just, I think, a great overall talent. Sammy Callahan was Jeremiah Snake. So there you go. I just found that out. So
yeah, we need to get Jeremiah Snake.
We need to get Jeremiah Snake shirt. Maybe he can wrestle off to Frank. But I love Thunder Rosa. And two, one time when I was watching NWA, they were doing kind of a clip show, and one was sort of a background on Thunder Rosa, and she seems to have a real heart for her community and where she comes from and for the fans. And I found out that she has a vlog where she eats tacos with other wrestlers. Right before we came on the air, I was watching her and Jerry Lynn eating tacos. So I think that's my new goal, is for the Nitty Gritty to get big enough that we can eat tacos with Thunder Rosa.
I that's a goal I'm willing to shoot for.
That's a goal we should go for. So I love her look. I love the half the face painted and the other half not. I just think she's a wonderful talent in the ring. I think she's someone who lets her real personality and the pride she has in her ethnicity really come out and be part of her character and who she is. Like Rosemary, she's getting older, but I think Thunder Rosa probably has a few more good years yet. And I really do hope that she is someone that they do decide to really focus the AEW women's division around. I know she's getting some prominent wins now, but to really be the centerpiece of that division, I think would be smart.
Yeah. I have her a little bit higher. We'll get there. My number 2 pick is Mandy Rose. And just to capitalize on what Leonard said, I mean, she is very hot, and that's not the only thing she brings to the table. I do think that her work in NXT has really kind of revitalized her in a big way. She was very good on the main roster, but they tried to kind of saddle her with just the hot looking blonde gimmick. There really wasn't much more to it. And I think that she had more to offer. So the fact that she's in NXT now and has a new look and is with, Toxic Attraction, which is, a great tag team there, I think has really given her a lot more to do. So I do think that you'll see her back on the main roster probably sooner rather than later, simply because I think she's doing a great job. But the truth of the matter is, like, she could just watching her walk on screen, I was keep the channel on there. So sorry if that's where my mind's at, but there you go.
Well, we're gonna move to a different direction because my number one, as you could guess, is Playboy Buddy Rose. I think a lot of people today, when they think of Buddy Rose, our age group, they think of the blow away diet joke vignette that the WWF did. He had gained a lot of weight at that time. I saw a quote from him that at one point during that period, Vince McMahon came in the locker room. He said, "You all need to work out more. You all need to be in better shape. You all need to have bigger muscles, except for Buddy Rose. Buddy, stay the way you are." Because he understood that the weight was part of the gimmick at that point. His heaviness was part of the gimmick at that point. And I went and looked at some pictures of him from like the early to mid 70s, and you wouldn't even believe it was the same guy. But he was a veteran with about 25-year career. You name the territory, he was there, won titles. Again, even right before the big weight gain in 1985, he was at the very first WrestleMania. We talked about that when we did our Tito Santana video because he was under the mask as the Executioner. He had that tag title run, the AWA with Doug Summers, and had some very good matches with the Midnight Rockers. And they won those belts off of Scott Hall and Kurt Hennig. And those were some good matches with them as well. So he was a solid wrestler, a decent promo. I have heard some of his promos, nothing to write home about, but he could get his point across. And I think it's sad that people only remember him as a joke in later years. And I do agree with you. If you ask any longtime wrestling fan, hey, name a wrestler that has a Rose-related name, Rose in their name. Buddy Rose is probably one that's going to come up.
Absolutely. My number one is Thunder Rosa. And I think that she's such a key part of women's wrestling in general right now, especially the AEW roster. She's really committed to her gimmick. The fans get behind her. She has that kind of determination that you can't fake. Like, she's very passionate in the ring. And again, for all the things that Leonard said about how she represents her culture, she did just lose to Jade Cargill in the TBS tournament because Mercedes Martinez came out of nowhere and debuted in AEW to help Jade win that match. So I actually think it makes more sense for Thunder Rosa to be competing for the main women's title there. And I think you will see that. I think that she needs to maybe come out of her shell in terms of promo work a little bit because right now there is no one that can really hold a candle to Britt Baker there. They're really just, she's great in the ring and she's great on the mic. And that's kind of the double combo that you need. But there are some women that are on the way, and I think Thunder Rosa is one of them. So, yeah, I really enjoy watching her in the ring. I always know she's going to be in the match that it's going to be a good match. And that's a reputation that you want to have. And I think that Tony Khan recognizes people like that. So, yeah, I enjoy her work a lot. So that wraps up our list, right, Leonard?
Right, of the best roses, or at least the roses that we have heard of.
All right. Well, we have a bonus for you, and that is also been dubbed affectionately Storm Warning, right, Leonard?
Yes, because it's people with the last name of Storm. These again, I was kind of thinking, well, what other name is similar to Rose? I hit upon Storm. And there isn't as many. Again, a lot of indie people a lot of people haven't heard of that have used the name Storm. So this is just 6. So we're just doing 6 of these names. And in rough alphabetical order, we're going to be talking about Denise Storm, Devin Storm, a.k.a. Crowbar, James Storm, Lance Storm, Tim Storm, and Tony Storm. And I'm going to guess that we probably have the same number 6, and it's Denise Storm, because she's probably least known of the people on this list. When I was looking at names, I went, that name sounds familiar. And I looked up a little bit about her, and she was a professional wrestler in the early 1990s. She was part of a promotion that was a successor to Glow called Ladies Professional Wrestling Association, which was a little bit better than that company as far as putting on serious affairs. They had one pay-per-view in 1992 called Super Ladies Showdown, and Denise got a win on that show over Susan Green.
You've watched that
and
a few times, right, Leonard?
well, at least 6 times on Fast Forward. And she was involved in the LPWA Japanese Championship tournament. It was, and she was in the finals of that, losing to Harley Sato. So she got all the way through this tournament. Again, I don't know a whole lot about her other than the few things I've looked up about her going into this, but she seems to be a very capable and notable name of early 90s women's professional wrestling, a period where there wasn't really a lot going on. It was still considered kind of a niche thing, but she was there and she was working, and our hats off to Storm. If you're out there, look us up.
Absolutely. We'd love to interview you. Unfortunately, I had to look up this name just to see who it was. At first, I looked at the name Denise Storm, and I was like, no, it's not Denise Austin, not the fitness chick. I was like, this is somebody else. And yes, I'm not familiar with her work. In the late 80s to early 90s was obviously not a very great period for women's wrestling. Thankfully, it is very prominent and growing now, but it certainly was now.
All right, my number 5 is Devon Storm, aka Crowbar, and again, Crowbar teamed with David Flair and was managed by Daphne, not Rosemary, in WCW. So I think most people know him as Crowbar, but he did wrestle as Devon Storm primarily on the indie circuit. Was in a lot of smaller promotions and regional promotions throughout the mid 90s to early aughts. And in WCW was the cruiserweight champ, was the hardcore champ, was tag champ with David Flair. So that's one thing I always thought was interesting with all the people they had. I think it's because David Flair was involved that they got time, like they got matches, they got time. So I think Crowbar was probably very lucky that he managed to hook his wagon to David Flair to at least get some screen time in a very crowded WCW during that period. Devon Storm was kind of one of those names that, that late 90s was a period where I was kind of starting to get online and reading different blogs and dirt sheets and learning about the whole world of pro wrestling that's out there. And Devon Storm was a guy who, I heard that name being on the indie circuit and someone that people really liked as far as being on the indie circuit and someone that people had high hopes for. And, unfortunately, he didn't maybe necessarily live up to all those, but he did have some national exposure. And that exposure was more under the name Crowbar than Devon Storm, but part of our Storm list.
Yeah, I mean, he is not my next pick, but I'm familiar with his work as Crowbar, certainly, and very much in the hardcore division. A lot of the pay-per-views I've been watching lately, for podcasts are some of the late WCW pay-per-views, and he was a big feature of the hardcore division, which is not a very known WCW division, but he was there and was willing to put his body through a lot of pain because he, it's certainly featured. So yeah, I have no complaints really about his work. He was a little bit higher for me.
Okay.
My number 5 pick is James Storm. So here is why. So in listening to some of the podcasts I listened to, specifically 83 Weeks with Eric Bischoff, Eric Bischoff is not very high on James Storm. And one of the things that they mention, and it's once you hear it, it's really hard to not see it when you watch his matches. And that is that when he would be on the card to win, he would be really passionate and really, amped up and ready to go. When he was slated to lose, he would walk to the ring with like a boo-boo face and wouldn't really care what was going on. And you can see it. And I definitely think that he was in the right place at the right time with Beer Money. Beer Money is a great tag team, but who's the person in WWE in the main roster? It's Bobby Roode, because that was the talent there. James Storm, I think, can play a certain type of character and can be good in a tag team, but as a singles guy, I just don't think he has main event potential. So, like I said, I'm sounding more negative here, but he has provided a lot of entertainment with Beer Money, and is one of those guys that's known for drinking beer on the way to the ring and all that. I just think that he could be somewhat lackadaisical when he wanted to be, when he wasn't motivated, rather, which is unfortunate. But that's why I have him at number 5.
Well, he's my number 4, so I can go ahead and talk about him now. Originally, I had him higher, but the more I thought about it, he kind of came down a little bit. And I had heard that critique against him via Eric Bischoff's podcast. But that wasn't really what I thought about it. He just isn't someone that I was ever a really big fan of. I certainly recognize the fact that he was part of 2 really popular and solid tag teams in Impact, that being America's Most Wanted with Chris Harris and then Beer Money with Bobby Roode. And I think both those tag teams would go down as being 2 of the best Impact had. I think Storm was, I can't remember if he was an Impact original or he was there close to day one and they kind of gave him that moniker because there was a period there where he was the flag bearer of original TNA for a while. And that's when his singles career started kind of really going, and he had the championship win, and he came to NWA during the period that I was watching it. And so I don't know, it's just something about him that I never really cared for. He would pop up, I would be fine with him. The beer drinking cowboy thing, something we've seen. He does play it well. So yeah, I think he's got a lot to offer, but maybe as you said, he never really applied himself in certain situations, and maybe that's why he never rose above a certain rank. He was in WWE for a cup of coffee, and I believe he left of his own accord, and it probably was because he wasn't getting the mega push that he thought he deserved.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. Bruce Pritchard has talked about that a little bit. So my number 4 pick is Devin Storm, Crowbar. And, I already talked a little bit about him. Some of the things you might not know is that he took part in the first ever light heavyweight championship tournament. He would wrestle and lose to Takamichi Noku, who would go on to win the tournament, but he was under the Devin Storm name there. So it'd be interesting to go back and look at that match. But yes, his main claim to fame is World Championship Wrestling, as I said, with the hardcore division. He had a big feud with Terry Funk, like I said, over the hardcore championship. He would return to the Devin Storm name when he went to the indie circuit. And he was for a little bit in TNA under the name Tempest. And he was also in All Elite Wrestling for a cup of coffee. He was on an episode of AEW Dark Elevation, and he lost to Joey Janela. So he's still around. And I like I said, I think that he was in just a horrible place at the horrible time with late WCW. And obviously it wasn't maybe the best, group to be paired with David Flair. But he seems to be good in the ring to me. So no other complaints.
So my number 3 is Tim Storm, who is someone I got to know when I started watching the NWA. He is 57 years old, still working for the NWA. He's originally from Pine Bluff, Arkansas. He's been wrestling since 1995. And primarily in very small regional promotions throughout the Southeast and Southwest. His biggest claim to fame is, of course, being the NWA World Heavyweight Champion, and he was the one who dropped that to Nick Aldis. And he's also been the North American Heavyweight Champion 2 times. And what I really like about Tim Storm is that he kind of reminds me of a lot of the guys I see here on the indie circuit in Ohio. they have regular 9 to 5 jobs during the week. They go somewhere on the weekends to wrestle for little more than gas money, and have done that for 20 years and do it for the love of the game. And Tim Storm seemed to be in the right place at the right time. The NWA was at their lowest point, and he winds up getting the title. And then Billy Corgan buys it, and he starts to bring in some talent, and they start rising up. And he's there. And it's similar to the storyline I mentioned possibly for Sam Houston when we did our Sam Houston episode, the grizzled veteran cowboy. That's Tim Storm. And I connect to that character. I like him. He seems like a cool dude. He seems like a dude you can go out and have a beer with. And it's just amazing that someone who you would call between a journeyman and just a regular indie dude could have that prestige, holding the same belt. Ric Flair, Harley Race, Sting, all these guys held. Is amazing. And I became a really big Tim Storm fan when I started to watch the NWA. I think he's a heck of a talent and a heck of a guy.
Yeah, he's my number 3 pick as well. And for all the reasons that you mentioned, I haven't watched as much of his work as you have, but what I have seen, I've enjoyed, and I would like to watch more. NWA Power is not always the easiest thing to track down, but I would like to watch more of his stuff. But yeah, seems like a good talent in the ring, and built well. So yeah, I echo everything you said. So I guarantee these will be switched for us. Guarantee it.
Okay. Because my 2 is Toni Storm. Okay, yeah. So Toni Storm, she's from New Zealand originally, only 26 years old, has accomplished a lot in that time, including being the NXT Women's Champion, and I think really the flag bearer of the NXT UK brand. Is that still a thing? Does the UK brand still exist, or did they collapse that? It's still there.
It's still there. It's just the thing is now is that it's kind of lacking the powerhouse champions that they had. I mean, you had Toni Storm and you had Walter. Walter had some killer matches with Dragunov in 2021, but Walter is not there now. I'm assuming, this is a big assuming, that Walter is going to be on the main roster sometime soon. You might see, maybe we'll see him in the Rumble. That would be a cool debut. But I don't know. So yeah, it is still a thing, but I think they're just kind of in that transition period right now.
Well, she won the Mae Young Classic in 2018. She was ranked 7 in the top 10 women's wrestlers of the year for 2018 by Sports Illustrated. And for the PWI in 2019, she was their 13th ranked wrestler out of 100. At the time of this recording, she has just left WWE. Apparently, I've heard some conflicting things. Either she asked for her release or she just left. One or the other. And I haven't seen probably as much of her as Chad has, and I'm sure he'll talk more about her in-ring work. But I have seen her in the ring. I like her talent. I think she's great with room to grow. I love her look because she's like the tough chick look, the leather look, the backwards baseball cap, that stuff. I think she looks unique. I think we talked about Mandy Rose being sort of a mix of a serious wrestler and pretty, siding more to the pretty. I think Toni Storm kind of has that, but slightly more towards the tough chick element to her and being a serious wrestler to her. So yeah, I really do like Toni Storm. I think I probably need a bigger sample size. By the time this comes out, she may be in AEW. I know that's the talk of her going over there, and that would certainly add to a women's division that we've talked about with Thunder Rosa being on the rise.
Right. Well, we'll get to her in a second. She's my number 1 pick, but my number 2 pick is Lance Storm. And obviously Lance Storm would probably be the name that most people would think of when they talk about people with the name Storm. I really think that Lance Storm's work in the ring is underrated. I think he's done some really good stuff over the years. I do think that he needs a equally as good person to work with to really have that work stand out. Um, his kind of monotone promo delivery and the "can I be serious for a minute" thing has sort of tired on me, but at the same time, it fit his character and his personality. I don't think that Lance Storm has done himself any favors on social media as of late. I
No.
think that he talks a lot and maybe shouldn't. I'm not in the wrestling business, but I think that sometimes his opinions don't do him any favors. So, but having said that, his work in WCW and WWE was pretty good. He's a mid card guy, but he's one of the highlights of a mid card division for me.
Oh yeah.
If I did start my own promotion, you'd want a mid card guy like Lance Storm, who can play characters to a certain certainly in a certain type of box, and can also have a good to really good match for you any night of the week. So I like Lance Storm, but he's not as nice to look at as my number one pick. So go ahead, Leonard.
Well, he's my number one, and I went on in-ring ability. I went on in-ring work.
I clearly didn't on this show.
Yes, that's okay. That's okay. We can rank. We can use different criteria. It's fine.
Right.
But I love Lance Storm as an in-ring worker, as a wrestler. I have even watched some of his early stuff in Smoky Mountain Wrestling when he was tagging with Chris Jericho as Thrill Seekers, and all the potential both of them showed at that time. He was certainly a highlight of late era WCW when he was doing the Canadian gimmick and he was carrying the flags around and won, I think, 2 or 3 of the different belts and was holding different belts at the same time. The problem, I think, is the fact that when he got to WWE, they didn't really know what to do with him.
Right.
There was a gimmick where Stone Cold Steve Austin was calling him boring and getting the fans to chant boring at him. Because I think he does come off as dry just as a character, as a person. I think he can cut a promo, but he would rather just get in the ring and work, I think, as opposed to playing a character or doing the mic work, even though he has that ability. So just based on the in-ring work and the long career that he's had, I believe he's like semi-retired now. I don't think he's 100% retired. He seems to pop up here and there still, doing some things. But I'm a fan of Lance Storm. As you said, he's on social media saying some things, and I haven't read a whole lot of that stuff. I am aware of it. But in-ring work-wise, I go with Lance Storm as my number one. And now you can talk about Toni Storm.
Right. Yeah, I'm a big fan of Toni Storm. I think that she's one of my favorite up-and-coming female talents. She's certainly easy on the eyes, but it's a very unique look. And Leonard talked about that too. And that's what I like about her. She doesn't come across as like a cookie cutter in terms of like the way she looks and the way she delivers herself. She has that kind of badass side, with the backwards cap and just the way she dresses. But she also is very good in the ring. And my guess would be that she might show up in AEW. I don't know if the 90-day non-compete applies to her or not. What I had heard is that she just, after a main event match, she was in the main event against Charlotte Flair. I think it was a triple threat. But she just requested and received her release. And if I had to guess, now I'm sure we'll hear about it at some point. Not only so part of it seems to be that maybe she's a little burned out. The WWE schedule has been known to wear on people over the years, but I would be shocked if part of it wasn't the fact that she maybe felt like there wasn't much room for growth there. You have your Becky Lynch's, your Sasha Banks, your Charlotte Flairs, but it's tough to kind of rise above them. And maybe she was worried that after her main event push with Charlotte that she would just kind of get pushed back down. I don't know, though. That's just kind of what I gather from a sudden exit like that. But she's had some really great matches with Io Shirai and Rhea Ripley. And I really think that she can serve a company very well. I would love to see her in AEW, just to see, how her style meshes with some of the people there. I know Britt Baker has, she posted a photo of Tony Storm shortly after this whole debacle went down. So yeah, I think that she has a lot left in her, and I can't wait for her to show back up somewhere. If it ends up being TNA, then that would certainly give me a motivation to check out TNA, which I really don't. But anywho, yeah. So those are our Rose Garden and Storm Warning lists. Which, you got to keep coming up with the names.
Right. It's a creative stable. Maybe that's what this is our new segment. It's a creative stable. Think of it's similar when we did the people who had the aquatic gimmicks.
Right.
But more name related. So maybe we'll continue to do this, either linked gimmicks or linked names or something like that in the future. But certainly these types of lists are fun. And I know when we first started out, we were like, this is going to be tough because we seem to agree so much. But as we see with this list, we didn't. We were all over the place, close or a number off here and there, but a little bit different. And that's our differing opinions. And I think we come at it from a bit of a different way. Me being more retro weighted, Chad still watching in the current product. But hopefully I'll be able to check out some AEW, and next time I will let you know my thoughts on the programming that I get to watch.
Absolutely, that'll be fun. And something I didn't mention at the top of the show is that as we record this, we are right in the middle of the 2-night or 3-night, perhaps, Wrestle Kingdom 16, which is going on right now. I've got my Okada shirt on, and my kids, it's like an anime style shirt, and my kids were really questioning me of what is that? Who is that? Oh, it's Okada. He's from Japan. Anyway, so that is going on. And finally, something I have been waiting years for. Bobby Lashley is finally going to face Brock Lesnar for the WWE heavyweight title at the Royal Rumble. Will it be a technical 5-star classic? Probably not. It probably won't be very long. But I think that a lot of fans have been waiting to see this. It is one of those, you could put it in a category of dream matches.
It's one of the few dream matches they've got left they can book.
And it seems like it's happened almost by accident because of the Roman Reigns COVID situation. I don't know if they were planning for this at all. I really don't. But it's happening, and I'm happy that it's happening. I'm looking forward to the promos that come out of that, because they really could be creative, especially Paul Heyman back in the mix. So it's the first thing I've been excited for with WWE for a while. Not only the fact that it's coming up to the Rumble, which is always probably one of my favorite pay-per-views to watch.
Yes, and I'll probably try to watch the Rumble, and we can talk about that. And usually this time of year we talk about past Rumbles, either our favorite Rumbles or a Rumble we want to talk about. So off the air, I was going to ask you if that's what you want to do for the next show. But
last time we did like favorite Rumbles, we could do like I don't know. Should we
least favorite
Rumbles we hate?
Rumbles.
We could rebook a Rumble. That might be fun.
Oh, that'd be really complicated if you're booking where people are entering and exiting at. Yeah.
We'll talk more about this. I've got ideas swirling in my head now.
The next episode will probably be somehow Rumble related. How about that for a teaser?
Absolutely. So please check us out on Apple Podcasts or Spotify if you'd rather listen to us. Hit the like button on our YouTube video. Subscribe to our channel. And for Leonard, my name is Chad. We will see you next week, and Alexa will see you out.